2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we are back. It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Tuesday night. Baseball getting underway, USC and PC, Clemson and Georgia. We'll update you on those games as we go through this hour of the program, and we've got a lot of stuff coming your way. We heard from Will Muschamp. If you missed our interview, it will be up on our website, sportstalksc.com, in mere minutes, right?
Mere moments.
Mere moments. And he was terrific,
within the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, he was terrific. We'll hear from Dabo Sweeney coming up, also Brad Brownell and Frank Martin, Kerry Tharp, and recruiting is coming up. I tell you what, before we get to recruiting, let's go ahead and listen to Dabo and hear what he had to say. It's the Prowl and Growl stop for Clemson tonight in Columbia, Will, and you went out there to the Jamil Temple to visit with the Tigers.
Did so. Dabo Sweeney, along with Brad Brownell, appearing at the Jamil Temple amongst a lot of Clemson fans, the combination group of the folks in Columbia and Lexington who are the IPTE folks who support the Clemson Tigers. Had a chance to sit down with Dabo, and I asked him first where he's at with his evaluation of spring practice.
Just, finished up our staff stuff yesterday and started my player meetings today. Coaches got into theirs yesterday and today as well. So we'll be really busy trying to meet with everybody on the team and make sure we're all on the same page, know what we got to do to get better. And then doing this, hitting the booster circuit, the IPTE tour here, and different engagements over the next few weeks. Got the ACC meetings coming up. And so just a lot. Coaches hit the road on Monday for a month of recruiting. And then, get back together at the end of May and get ready for our camps.
Do you like having all that attention on the quarterbacks, especially after what your quarterback had started last season did for your team?
I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I like having the attention on any position that has a lot of talent. That means that's a good thing when you got people that see multiple guys that are very talented at a certain spot, whether it be quarterback or running back or receiver or D-line, whatever it may be. I think that's always a positive when you got great competition.
Dabo, what's going to be your answer tonight when somebody asks you if you're planning on playing 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks per game this year?
That depends on how many balls they'll let me have. I said that earlier. Our group is hopefully maybe they'll let us have 2 huddles and 2 balls. That'd be a lot easier to figure out. But it's exciting, I mean, we got good players and we got great young men. That's a position where we've got a high level of character, high level of intelligence, and they all want to be the guy and got good relationships with each other. So, it's a real positive for our program. And regardless of where we are today, we got a long way to go before we play in September. And then no matter what happens in September, I don't think the competition is just going to end. I think we got guys on the roster that are going to be driven each and every day to either be the guy or beat the guy out or make the guy better, whatever it may be.
Would you be in favor of a scenario where in the spring maybe you bring another team in from another place to possibly play a controlled scrimmage or something like that?
I'd be the first to vote for that. I've been advocating for that for years. We're the only level of football that doesn't have anything like that. We don't have even if you didn't have the fans there, you just had a practice like basketball does. Like our basketball team plays somebody every year and nobody sees it, but that's fine. You want to have a chance to gauge where your team is, where you're not as familiar. And then also you're not, you don't have all 22 of them aren't your toes and fingers and shoulders and knees. And, you're 100% invested every time you scrimmage. So I just think teams get familiar with each other. They learn each other's systems and things like that. And it would be great to be able to, even if it wasn't a scrimmage, to be able to practice one-on-one, do one-on-one route running, one-on-one OLDL pass rush, do some inside drill, do some skelly, stuff like that, where, true practice stuff, I think would be great. But, yeah, I don't think that's got any momentum at all. But I'd love it.
Have you talked to your coaches about that?
Oh yeah, for years. Yeah.
They all agree.
I think some do. I don't know if they all do or not, but yeah, it's been something we've talked about a long time, but that's never gotten any traction.
Didn't really elaborate on the quarterback situation as far as who's going to start or what or not. So I think from that standpoint,
Trevor Lawrence.
A lot of those questions will be left until
Trevor Lawrence.
At a more
and then
time.
when they let these college athletes start having endorsements and stuff, I mean, I could see him doing a Prel commercial or a Head and Shoulders, kind of like who was the great DB for the linebacker for the Steelers?
Troy Polamalu.
Yeah, who did the Head and Shoulders commercials. Yeah, that'd be perfect for him. All right, Presbyterian has taken a 2-0 lead on South Carolina.
Get out of here! You're kidding, are you? You're kidding, right? Presbyterian is leading South
Does this
Carolina?
face look like it's kidding?
Sometimes you pull my
PC
leg.
has a baseball team.
I understand,
and
that.
They were very good in the Big South last year.
I understand.
Almost, they came within a game of winning the Big South.
The flagship baseball program in the state of South Carolina right now is
Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina has the highest RPI in the state.
I know. Where's Winthrop?
Presbyterian. We mentioned Winthrop.
Where's Winthrop?
Presbyterian is up 2-0 on South Carolina as they play in the top of the first. So Carmen Mazinski is off to a rugged start in this start for the Gamecocks. He pitched well in his previous start. Clemson has taken a 1-0 lead on Georgia in Athens, and Tigers took that lead with a leadoff home run by Logan Davidson to right field. So they're up 1-0. Georgia up. Did Georgia tie it up already? No, I'm sorry. Georgia has now come to the plate and is batting, and we'll keep you up to date on those games. All right, let me get to recruiting now because I got a lot of stuff for you. We're getting backed up. So we begin with, I think we had a chance to mention this last night. I'll give you some more detail. Clemson's commitment from running back Ches Malusi, 6 feet, 175, Naples, Florida. Clemson's 5th commitment since Friday, 9th in the class. He visited Clemson for the first time last week, was offered. Tigers immediately moved into his lead group with Miami and Notre Dame, and after a week to think about it, he went with Clemson. Likes the offense, likes the coaches, and he could have stayed close to home and go to Miami, but he felt like he wanted to go on his own and do something different. 1,500 yards and 19 touchdowns last season, averaged 9 yards per carry. Clemson is showing interest and recruiting receiver Lance Wilhoit out of Nashville, 6'3", 170. He had planned to visit Saturday for the spring game, and then he changed his plans and went to Tennessee. But he said he does love Clemson, and he said, of course, he loves what they do with their receivers, and he thinks he can fit in to their scheme. And last season, he had 1,087 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns. He also had 67 tackles on defense. He said the others strong with him at this point are Oregon, Florida State, Ohio State, Louisville, Arkansas, and Tennessee. Clemson target, defensive back Tyler Rudolph, will take an official at Penn State this weekend. He was at Clemson unofficially last weekend. Another Clemson target, defensive back Sheridan Jones of Virginia Beach, plans to announce something on Friday. He tweeted out that be looking for something at 7 o'clock on Friday. He was at Clemson Saturday for the spring game, and he's also had USC, Ohio State, Virginia Tech, Alabama, Tennessee, and Nebraska on his short list. Ohio State has also been particularly strong with him. USC offered a pair of receivers, Brandon Turnage, 6'1", 185 of Oxford, Mississippi, currently committed to Alabama, and Isaiah Hazel, 6'1", 190 of Upper Marlboro, Maryland. In basketball, 6'3", Devontae Bandu, Hutchinson Junior College in Kansas, took his official visit to USC last weekend. He said it was a great visit, and he said he will take more official visits before deciding. He did not tell us where else he's going to visit. And we have just a couple of more basketball recruiting notes, and that'll be perfect because that will lead us into Brad Brownell and Frank Martin here on Sports Talk. We'll be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
All right, Presbyterian still up on USC 2-0. Gamecocks do have a runner on first. Go ahead.
What?
I know you want to cackle at me. Georgia, by the way, has just scored twice, taking a 2-run lead on Clemson.
Oof. Not a good night for
2-1. Did I say a 2-1 lead on Clemson?
Not a good night for baseball in the state. Oh well.
It's early.
Yeah.
A lot of innings left. All right, let me continue with the recruiting.
It's not always a good thing for Clemson. See last Friday night against Miami.
Anyway, Devontae Bandu, I told you about him, and still going to take some other official visits before deciding. I talked to his coach as well, who said that Bandu doesn't say a whole lot, pretty obviously. And he said he liked his visit. He likes Frank Martin. And his coach at Hutch, Steve Eck, and Martin go way back. They know each other, so there's a good relationship there. Bandu has been getting interest from Rutgers, Indiana, Wichita State, Baylor, Maryland, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Houston, New Mexico, and Buffalo. 6'7" Christian Brown of Lower Richland, a top prospect in the state for 2019. Of course, his first offer came 2 years ago from Brad Brownell. Brownell was in on Friday to visit with him, as was Frank Martin from USC. So he had kind of a doubleheader there. And he said out of the schools in South Carolina, Clemson and South Carolina have been recruiting him the hardest, and they're both coming after him really hard at this point. Brown said that, okay, hang on a second, back up, scratch everything I just said. I'm combining two stories here. Brownell met with Christian Brown on Friday, and Frank Martin was over to see Juwan Gary on Friday, not Christian Brown. So Clemson's been on Christian Brown very hard. Out of the schools in South Carolina, Clemson's been recruiting him the hardest. He's not calling Clemson his overall favorite, but the Tigers will be in his top 5 when he releases that list. He said he hasn't heard that much from USC recently, though he's expecting Perry Clark to visit him this week. Florida coach Mike White was in on Monday. Josh Pastner of Georgia Tech and Buzz Williams of Virginia Tech were to be in today. Will Wade of LSU is due in tomorrow. He's got one official visit set, and that is UNLV in late May. Clemson made the cut for the final 10 with Kentucky transfer 6'10" sophomore Sasha Killia-Jones.
Don't read all 10.
His mother told the Louisville Courier-Journal. The others are Arizona State, Georgetown, Nevada, NC State, Notre Dame, Pitt, North Carolina, Texas, and Wake. See, I wasn't going to do it. But then when you said don't do it, I did it.
You're like a
because
child.
I can.
You're like a child. Sometimes.
Now, 6'6" Juwan Gary of Gray Collegiate in Columbia. He had the doubleheader of head coaching visits on Friday. Brownell was there, and then Martin came in. And he said they were just chatting him up about school and life and things like that. He likes both of them. He says both of them are telling him he can be the face of the state of South Carolina if he goes to Clemson or South Carolina. And he has seen, of course, the recent success at both schools. What he likes about Clemson is his opinion that they develop wing players and get them to the NBA. And what he likes about South Carolina is that they don't have a lot of scorers, and they need somebody to come in and score big, and he thinks he can be that guy. Coming in to see him will be head coaches from Kansas, Marquette, Virginia, and NC State, he said this week. He's been having text messages from them. No official visits have been set. He'll do that after his travel season is over. Standing out the most with him right now, though, are USC, Clemson, Virginia, NC State, and Kansas. 6'3" Trey McGowan's a Clemson target, was offered by Pitt. Guard Chris Martin of Charlotte committed to a Presbyterian. And Coastal Carolina announced a couple of signings today. 6' David Krall, who is from Slovenia, and 6'5" Abrima Dibba, who is 6'5", and he is from Sweden, but he goes to school in New Jersey. And that's that.
And that's recruiting.
That's recruiting here on Sports Talk.
And all that recruiting in Georgia just put up a 4 spot while you.
Oh, is that right? It's not good. It's not good. Let's go to Brad Brownell, shall we?
We shall. Brad Brownell, the head coach of Clemson, was at the same event that Dabo Swinney was, the Prowl and Growl event in Columbia. And I asked him, very similarly to I asked Dabo Swinney, just where he is with his offseason evaluation after a Sweet 16 appearance against Kansas.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of it, really. Finishing up our last week of individual skill workouts and weight room stuff with our guys. You know, because we played so long, well into the tournament, we didn't have as much time, but we've had about 3 weeks together, and it's been productive. So we really like that. And then obviously we're still out recruiting. It's a big recruiting month for us, adding maybe a player or two to this year's roster, and then also looking at 19s and 20s that are still high school kids that have a little bit more time, but working on that.
Ideally, I know you can't use specific names or anything, but what would you ideally like to add for this year's team if you could add something?
I think we need another player of some size and maybe another perimeter player. You know, we lose some good players. Gabe DeVoe, you know, David Scarr is kind of a versatile guy that left and is graduating, and so he's kind of at 3-4. You know, and then obviously Dante Grantham was a tremendous player at a forward spot for us. So Mark Donnell was a great backup 5-man that really gave us good minutes. So, you know, ideally we'd like to at least get one more big guy and then at least one more perimeter player.
What kind of feedback have you gotten on Shelton and Marquise?
Yeah, it's still really early. That doesn't really heat up for another couple of weeks where those guys will begin to go out and meet with some folks in the NBA and kind of have a few more workouts. So right now they've just been doing a lot of things on their own, doing stuff with our staff, trying to get themselves ready, getting kind of into shape and preparing themselves for that time period.
Whose impact do you think will take a dramatic jump next year at the existing guys on your roster?
I think it's hard to say. I really do. You know, I think Amir Sims has a chance to take a big jump just because he got enough time as a freshman there with Dante's injury to kind of see the things that he needs to work on, but also showed us that he can play at this level and play successfully. He's a very good rebounder and an improving shooter. You know, I think there's opportunities for guys like Clyde Trapp and A.J. Oliver to take steps forward and be called on to do a little bit more. I think Marquise and Shelton are both guys that we just would look for more consistency, good players. And Elijah Thomas, I think, took his biggest step of anybody last year and was a big factor in us being one of the better defensive teams in the country.
What are your thoughts about the Cayman Islands?
Yeah, it should be a great trip. Nice field. A lot of teams that were in the top 50 and top 100 in college basketball. So we always try to find a good event with, you know, a couple of high majors and a lot of good mid majors. Hopefully in a nice vacation area to just kind of get away for a little bit and enjoy that and challenge ourselves. So I think it'll be a good tournament.
How much do you think this past year changed the way that this fan base feels about basketball? I mean, I know football is so big here, but do you think that it maybe put a lot more attention on y'all?
Yeah, there's no question increase, you know, fan base attendance. I think we sold out 7 or 8 out of the 9 ACC games. You know, great student attendance, create a little more excitement. I think, you know, we'll certainly see a bunch of folks tonight ask questions about our team and probably paid a little more attention to us as we played into the NCAA tournament. I thought, you know, advancing to the Sweet 16 was a significant accomplishment, something that hadn't been done in over 20 years. Very difficult to do in our sport. You know, the way we did it by playing so well in the first 2 games against New Mexico State and Auburn, I think our fans were very proud of that.
And that tournament in the Cayman Islands takes place Monday, November 19th through the 21st. They will play in that tournament, or the teams that will play in that tournament along with Clemson are Boise State, Akron, Illinois State, Creighton, Georgia, Georgia State, and St. Bonaventure.
Be a lot of fun. I think I will handle that one for us. I've already put in my credential request.
Your passport's still valid there?
Oh, I think so.
Why does it seem that some of these pre-Thanksgiving holiday tournaments, either South Carolina and Clemson in the tournament, and Akron's always there?
Akron, the Zips.
Illinois State was in the South Carolina tournament last year in Conway, masking as Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm. And beat them.
Yes.
And beat them, surprised them. DJ Turner, very fine defensive back out of Sewanee, Georgia, has cut his list to 11. He announced.
Better than a baker's dozen.
Don't read them all.
I don't have time, but I will tell you that Clemson is
one of
amongst
them.
his 11.
One
We'll
of the
be
11.
right back. All right, let's get to the NASCAR scene. The 24 Hours of Bristol wrapping up yesterday. Long weekend as Kerry Tharp, the president of Darlington, joins us. Too many times here of late, KT, we're having to talk about these Monday finishes. I mean, I know there's nothing you can do about it. everybody gets affected if you have an outdoor sport. I mean, Major League Baseball has just been slammed by the weather this season.
Well, they really have, Phil, and certainly it's been kind of a unusual spring here, really in the southeastern part of the United States and up the seaboard. When you look at all the Major League games that were canceled last weekend, I think there were 6 that were postponed. And certainly Bristol Motor Speedway did not escape that weather, and their race got pushed back to Monday. So, you know, we even had snow about a month ago up in Martinsville. So it's been a little unusual for the outdoor sports this time of year, and that's unfortunate. You know, it really hurts if you're a track promoter or certainly own a Major League Baseball team. If you have an event that is postponed, that can hurt you in the pocketbook.
Oh, absolutely. So let me ask you this, as a track president and a promoter, and of course you guys have the luxury of having a holiday on Monday after your race on Sunday. So if you have an issue on Sunday, you have a holiday the next day. Why not just go for the races that are on holiday weekends like yours, why not go to Saturday nights to give yourself that wiggle room so you've got a Sunday available in the case of inclement weather?
Well, that's a good point you bring up. I'm certainly sure that there's opportunities for them to do that, but a lot of it has to do with television on when the window is and when network TV can put you into their sports programming. And then, you know, NASCAR fans are kind of creatures of habit, as are NFL fans. They like watching their sports on Sunday afternoon. And so, but, you know, who's to say there won't be a time when NASCAR has a midweek race? You know, I mean, that's an opportunity to try to attract a new fan base or attract a new audience. Because I can tell you, even though the weather at Bristol wasn't very good, you know, sometimes you know, having a race on a different type of date or night, you know, it might work when it comes to ratings and people watching.
Sounds to me like you're floating a trial balloon out there for your listenership here in the state.
Well, you know, I wouldn't want it to happen at our place because I think we're firmly entrenched in the Labor Day weekend. But I think NASCAR is certainly looking at some different things that they possibly might be doing over the next several years, and maybe a midweek night Cup race might be the answer. And you know, who's to say that wouldn't be a pretty cool offering for some people? So I think it would only work at certain venues. It might be tough to work at a venue like Talladega or even Bristol, where you don't have a large metropolitan, you know, group of people that could come, you know, at a drop of a hat. But it might be something worth exploring.
Sure.
So when do we start looking for contraband in the Kyle Busch team with now 2 consecutive wins and possibly going to a third with Richmond, a track that he's fared very well at?
Yeah. Well, you sound like the conspiracy theories working with you, but you know, certainly Kyle Busch, you know, he won the race at Bristol. That's his 7th win, I think, at Bristol. So, you know, he's very, very strong there. He's also strong at Richmond. But you get Kyle Busch on a little bit of a roll. It's like getting Stephen Curry on a roll from 3-point range. He won't quit. And so I wouldn't be surprised this weekend if he goes up to Richmond on Saturday night and is the class of the field either. But you're exactly right. He gets in a little bit of a groove. He won at Texas. He won at Bristol. So he's got 2 wins under his belt right now. And really, when you look at it, it's been him and Kevin Harvick that have kind of been dominating the show so far through this early part of the season.
Yeah.
Now, wasn't it kind of a shame, too, because that would have been a great finish on Sunday. I think a lot of race fans love to see guys squeeze around somebody's bumper and take the
It was
lead.
a great finish on Monday, regardless of when it happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm talking about if it's more eyes were looking at it.
There's no question, Tom. You know, it's tough to get a large TV audience on Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock or whenever that was, 2 o'clock. But certainly some people were sneaking some views on their laptops and home computers and so forth, even at work. But, yeah, it was a pretty cool way for Kyle Busch to get to victory lane. You know, he's a veteran. He knows what to do. He knows when to do it. And he pretty much schooled Kyle Larson there, if you ask me. He waited to the last possible moment that he needed to do it, kind of gave him a little nudge and got him out of the way and went on to the win.
Yeah, I mean, I know Larson said after the last pit stop, and on the restart, his car was immediately loose. He said prior to that, it was in great shape. It was handling extremely well, and I think you could see in the laps leading up to the pass that he was heading up towards the wall. He was losing that track position, and you knew if Busch could get to his bumper, he was going to give him that little Bristol bump and knock him up towards the wall and go underneath him, something that Earnhardt Sr. used to do with routine elegance during his days at Bristol.
No question. And really, if you looked at the race over the weekend, whether you watched it on Sunday or Monday, I thought it was one of the better Bristol races of past, because it was a lot of bumping and running and people kind of nudging one another. And, you know, they were up on the wheel and you know, there were some crashes early on, people getting caught up in lap traffic. So for the most part, it was a pretty good Bristol race. It's just a shame they couldn't have had it, you know, when it was regularly scheduled and had a good crowd there and the weather was cooperating.
All right, so what's happening at your place now? I know you're several weeks into your renovation. How's it coming along?
It's coming along great, Phil. I was out there again today putting up the aluminum risers over on Tyler Tire that's going to change the angle of the seats up there in the upper deck. And it's going to be really a spectacular view up there when they put in the stadium-style seats with cup holders. And, excuse me, they're doing a lot of work on the lower side as well, widening the aisles, doing a lot of concrete work, getting ready to put in the bleachers in the lower section on the front stretch and the back stretch. And so, you know, a good bit of work's going on there. You know, it was kind of cool. Last week we had Rusty Wallace out at the place. He owns several car dealerships over in East Tennessee, and they came over and filmed one of his Kia dealers, filmed some commercials out there, and that was pretty cool to see him out there going pretty quick out there in some of the Kia sports cars that they have on in the showroom. And so, you know, we've got a few things going on, but right now the gist of it is the construction that we have.
I know you're still selling some of those old seats. You know, we have our new video feed here on Periscope. We need a little eye candy here in the studio. You should save a couple of those seats for us to display here in the studio.
Well, I tell you what, Will, consider it done. We can make it happen. You know, knowing Phil, I might have to paint him up in Yankee pinstripe.
Absolutely.
But you know, it's pretty interesting though what a lot of the folks and a lot of fans are doing with the seats. They're making swings out of them. They're putting them at their pools. They're taking them to their beach homes, putting them in their man caves. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with these seats. It's actually kind of cool.
Actually, if we're going to do that, considering where we are in the sports season, I prefer it to be Celtic green right now.
There you go. And the Celtics, I tell you, you know, I hope they can pull through the playoffs and get through that first round. That would be pretty exciting. They're kind of banged up right now, but you know the Celtics, they have a lot of pride.
A lot of pride. As I'm saying, with every victory right now, it's 15 to number 18. 15 wins to get to banner number 18.
There you go.
It's a long road, but we can get there. KT, as always, my man, you are the man. Thank you for being with us. We'll be looking for our seats in the mail.
Okay, you all take care.
Bye-bye.
In the mail.
You like how I hustle that?
It's good.
I'm all about the team hustle.
You are a slick dude. All right, let's update things. Georgia up on Clemson 4-1. Tigers had bases loaded, didn't they?
They did.
And what happened?
Got nothing.
They didn't score.
Our friend Scott Eisberg put this out. I don't know if you saw this, Corn, but
can I mention this real quick?
Sure.
Presbyterian up on USC 3-0. Gamecocks have corners with 2 outs in the bottom of the second.
It was a real shocking injury involving the minor league team down in Charleston. One of the opposing pitchers got hit in the face with a line drive, and they had to put the ambulance out there at Joe Rowley Park.
Ooh.
Really, his name is Sergio Cubalete. They're saying that he's responsive in the ambulance and aware that he's been rolled onto a stretcher. Just a scary scene. Don't search for the video.
Oh, you saw the video?
I saw the video.
Did he get his glove up at all? Oh, just straight on. I'm sure that'll be replayed all over the place coming up. Okay, we'll come back and hear from Frank Martin here in a moment.
Even he said that. Even he said that the transfers happen. How hard are those discussions? Even he said that the transfers happen. How hard are those discussions? You know, with a guy like David and guys you've had.
I've said this. I've said this. I've said this.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
All right, we are back with you on Sports Talk here in our last few minutes of the night. Going to hear from USC basketball coach Frank Martin in just a moment. Want to remind you, of course, that we here on Sports Talk highly recommend that you do the following whenever possible. And you know what that is? Check out foundersfcu.com. Learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs.
Now 5-1 Georgia in a second.
Georgia 5-1 and a pitching change for Clemson. Spires coming in for Marr. Presbyterian leading the Gamecocks 3-0. They're in the top of the third. And some other scores of note, Auburn leading UAB 3-1. Jacksonville over Florida 4-3. Upstate over North Carolina A&T 6-5. Greensboro leads Wake Forest 4-1. Georgia Southern over the College of Charleston 3-0. Sanford leading Alabama 3-0. Citadel leading Charleston Southern 5-3. And NC State leading North Carolina. This must not be a league counting game, though. 4-1, NC State over North Carolina. Tennessee leading East Tennessee State 3-0. East Carolina over Duke 2-1. Virginia Tech 4-3 over Radford. Louisville leading Kentucky 2-1. Florida State over Stetson 2-0. Davidson leads Winthrop 5-2. Virginia 2-1 over George Washington. Frank Martin was speaking at a Gamecock Club stop in Lancaster last night, courtesy of the state newspaper, which was there to cover it, and they got some video and audio of him. And he talks about the question, how do you talk to a player who comes to you about transferring? How do you deal with that? Referring, of course, most recently here to David Beatty and his departure from the program.
I've said this 5 years now. Mm-hmm. There's this misconception that we call guys in and say, you got to go. Right. Coaches get blamed for every transfer. It's like we're going to run a program under the same guidelines that we asked Michael Carrera, Sendarius, PJ, Dwayne, Mendogas. Take your pick. We're going to run a program where they're going to be asked to follow the same protocol that all those other guys will follow. And some guys don't like that. Some guys don't feel comfortable. Some guys, want what's the word I'm looking for? Quicker results. And they've got to make decisions. It's what's best for them.
Give me an update on Brian or that situation?
Yeah, that's an ongoing, I don't want to say saga because that's not the right word, but it's a sensitive deal. Right. And everyone understood. We all understood Brian understood the situation he's in. We understood the situation, and there's no rush. We're not trying to hit the fast forward button on anything. Brian and his family want things done right. We want things done right. He's, I can tell you now, after being around him for 4 months, unbelievable kid, just an unbelievable family. I'm not talking about his talent. His talent as a basketball player is real good. I'm just who he is. I mean, just brings people together. He's engaging in recruiting. He's been tremendous with the recruits on campus. He's fun.
How's Kim doing? Everything on track with him?
Yeah, it's he's doing his stuff. Yeah, it's I've had him doing all kinds of stuff, which I'm gonna speak about here pretty soon. I wanted him to get through the semester before I kind of make public some of the things that we asked him to do. And it's not like we're trying to create a secret about those responsibilities that I put him through. Eventually, we won't speak about it. I just want to make sure he got through them first before everyone knows what basically the criteria that I put in front of him before we can consider playing basketball again.
All right, Frank Martin. I don't know about Felder. You hear that very end of his comments there before we can talk about him playing basketball again. I guess that leaves the door open to some doubt about whether or not he will be back.
Well, I think there's doubt with both Felder and Bowen, I think, at this point, just because of the fact that, again, we don't know definitively what he's been asked to do, he being Felder, but you can infer that there's probably some things that he has to do and prove to Frank from a determination standpoint, staying out of trouble with the law, staying off the alcohol and all the other substances and stuff like that. I'm sure that there are steps that need to be taken from him that Frank still isn't satisfied with, or Frank will be satisfied with if he can get to those. And I think that, as long as he can still dangle the cherry that is, being able to be a full-fledged member of this basketball team again, he's going to continue to, I guess, motivate him to be at that.
Here's part of the problem if you're Frank Martin. Without going into too much personal detail here, because I'm no reason to share that, but from talking with somebody who in the know, this person compared his situation to Derek Watson. And if people remember Derek Watson, the great high school running back with all that talent and a terrible personal living situation. Remember, he basically was on the streets and bouncing around from, I guess, maybe relative to relative or foster home to foster home. And Felder faces the similar situation in his own personal life, in that he's got nowhere to go from a personal standpoint. He's got siblings in prison. It's just a bad. And so you're a coach and you're trying to help a guy, and, but he's also got to do the things to help himself and do the things that you have to do to be part of the program. But you don't want to kick a guy to the curb, and by doing so might do some terrible things to his mental state and to his opportunity to make it in life. Well, that's what you're facing in a situation like that as a head coach.
The thinking you got here is this. If you're a kid like Rakeem Felder, and if you're the situation you described, he's never had anybody he can depend on. So even if you get a guy like Frank Martin, his thinking is, I can't depend on him either because everybody else has left me high and dry. Why should I trust this guy? But the passion is there. you could tell when he's on the court with his teammates, the passion is there. He just needs to control that passion, that bravado off the court, because he's going to spend most of his life going forward off a basketball court, not on it.
And the one that makes me feel a little bit more uneasy is this stuff with Bowen, not just because of all the stuff that came out before, but all the stuff that continues to come out about these guys who are accused of wrongdoing and accused of either taking money or getting it funneled or it's being shielded. And I have a feeling that because the FBI is the body that is adjudicating a lot of this information, that the NCAA will be compelled to rule with more of a fair and iron fist when it comes to a lot of these situations. So I don't know if you're going to get a scenario where Brian Bowen comes back to play expediently.
Here's the question, though. You have an administration who went to the NCAA, cooperated with the NCAA.
I don't think it matters.
Versus an Auburn with their coach who did not cooperate, and those two guys are back on the team.
South Carolina never gets a break from the SEC office or the NCAA. And the NCAA has stabbed programs in the back before that have come before it and said, hey, this is what we've got. This is what we've done. They've still stuck it to them. But imagine this. This will be the worst nightmare for South Carolina. Imagine if Silva does turn pro and Felder can't come back and Bowen is not eligible.
Who's going out there?
Well, then you do what?
Jason Cudd going to start?
Then you do what Villanova did. You know what Villanova did?
What did Villanova do?
They play 4 guards.
Yeah, but I mean, they got great guards.
I don't know if they have 4 guards, pro.
They do.
They're talking about Hassani Gravett, Mike Coetzer, Jason Cudd, Couisnard,
TJ Moss,
maybe
Felipe Haas,
maybe Devontae Bandu if they get him.
That'll do it. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.